Hey comic collectors, it's Christopher, aka the Bronze Age Nerd, and in today's video we're going to talk about something that's irritating a lot of comic book collectors right now and a lot of comic book readers, and that's the Comixology app's transition over to Amazon Kindle. Let's get into it. Recently, Comixology transitioned over from its own standalone service that you could access when Comixology was owned by Amazon into being integrated into the Amazon ecosystem. I can look into the future and see what some comments would be in the comment section if I didn't talk about this ahead of time. So I'm just going to address this now. I understand a lot of comic book readers and collectors do not like digital comic books. They don't like reading them. They think they're a threat maybe to physical comic books. Let me just say that for the purpose of this video, let's just focus on the fact that Comixology is having some issues, and let's talk about those issues. Personally, I read a lot of comics on Comixology. I'm actually a big fan of that platform, and there's a lot of reasons why. It's hard for me to acquire some of the comic books that I want to read, and digital is a good way to do that. It's easy for me to read around my family and not have to worry about handling books correctly, like with a toddler running around, that kind of stuff. And plus, I like to binge read, and it's a little bit easier to do that. Plus, it doesn't take up a bunch of room for some comic books that I just want to read, but I don't necessarily want to own. But I get it. A lot of people out there have strong feelings about digital platforms in general, and especially when it comes to comic books. I understand, but that's not really the point of this video, so let's talk about what happened. So one place we can go to get a sense of what's going on here is just Reddit. There's a Reddit for Comixology, the Comixology app. And right now, people are talking about things like refunds. They're talking about, oh no, the old app doesn't work anymore, whether or not there's an offline mode. People are talking about how to get refunds, for example. People are talking about being able to access their books. It's pretty bad. A lot of, how do you do refunds or how do you talk to an agent? A lot of this kind of stuff happening. Alternatives to Comixology, petitions to revert back to the old Comixology, broken new features, wish lists, not working. There's a bunch, guys. This one was particularly funny. An Amazon rep not even knowing what Comixology is, even though it's one of their companies and one of their apps that they supported. It's pretty bad. In fact, it got so bad that Patton Oswalt, who's kind of a notorious comic book fan in the celebrity community, actually started tweeting about this, and this kind of went viral in the comic book community to a certain extent. Comixology, what have you done? Guys, just switch it back. You can do it. Come on, switch it back. No hard feelings. A lot of back and forth. He actually did a huge thread on some of the issues that he was having with this and explaining it. And yeah, things are not doing well with Comixology. Okay, but maybe that was just, one, oh God, Comixology's overall is here and it sucks. There's got to be different information out there, right? Oh, it's a disaster. Okay. The new update takes all the fun out of reading digital comics. Yeah, no, it's definitely a widespread opinion that there's some problems going on here. So the good question that's asked by this IGN article is, why is Comixology 4.0 so reviled, and what motivated the company to issue such sweeping changes in the first place? So yeah, they were acquired by Amazon back in 2014, and there's been some ups and downs. I would say that Comixology is an app that I felt like was neglected and not updated properly. There were several issues. Downloads were extremely slow is one thing that I would kind of criticize them for. There's really a lot that people had issues, right? But I use Comixology all the time, and I will say that even though I had serious issues with what was going on in the app, I think that for the most part it functioned, and that was a good start. Now they're having their libraries disappear after this migration. All kinds of real issues here. So a big complaint is that the Comixology forward-facing website is gone. You have to go through Amazon's website to get to the comic books now, which is a minefield at best, and it's an utter nightmarish disaster at worst. I mean, it's really hard to find things on Amazon. Sometimes, if you're looking for a specific product and you know everything about that product, it can still be hard to surface a result on Amazon. And that's not even talking about comic books, which are very specifically titled in different volumes and different years and all that kind of stuff. So it's very confusing if you're not looking for. This tweet, dear God, this is a disaster. Their reader's going away. So as of next week, here are my options to read comics on desktop. There's no 2-page view, no zoom, and I have not altered these pictures aside from the markup. The new cloud reader is pretty bad. I don't think I've encountered anybody that actually enjoys it. And yeah, this article points out there is the one shred of good news is that when you actually get into the comic books, it isn't much different. But the problem is some people can't even get to those comic books. I mean, that's one of the problems. A lot of people are talking about how the app is slower now. And a weird thing that, I mean, this could be a temporary issue, of course, but people are looking at their file size comparisons for comic books, and they're noticing that even though the quality almost seems lower on some books, the file size is up to 2 times larger, or maybe even more in some cases. Another thing that happened here is that this forced users to kind of merge their logins. And even though both, the Amazon side of things and the Comixology side of things ran concurrently for 7 years now, they no longer were saying that they could do that. And it is expensive to probably develop an app on 2 different platforms, even if they're not necessarily substantially different. It's still, a lot of work to test everything, to integrate everything. So that does make sense to a certain degree. But at the same time, I think maybe many people, maybe I'm alone with this, I'm not sure. I think maybe if they had just stuck with the Comixology side of things and not the Amazon side of things, it might have been better. This article that I'm reading now from Apple Insider points out that there's no longer an ability to archive items. So, there's just a lot of interesting facets to this. I'm looking at this article from Gizmodo right now that mentions that there's been severe backlash from comic creatives. So they're particularly angry, according to a Polygon report, that changes the publishing options for smaller options by transitioning to ebook focused Kindle Direct publishing program, which puts more work on comics creators while granting them fewer royalties in comparison to Comixology's previous submission process. So this is a problem on multiple levels. So far, I'm seeing a trend here that Comixology/Amazon have not responded to press requests for additional information either. So I, for one, am not alone, apparently, am very frustrated with this process. It's affected me personally. To some degree, it's affected a lot of people a lot more. Luckily, my account was already linked with Amazon, which I think maybe seems to have made this transition a little bit smoother as far as my library is concerned. However, I do have a lot of items in my Comixology library, so I don't really know that everything's there. It's kind of hard to check. I just kind of have to go and look for something, and if I notice it's missing, then I guess I got screwed. So I opened this episode up by talking about the dangers of digital media a little bit. Let's talk about that a little bit more. I know I said that, hey, we're not going to try to criticize digital media, but this is kind of where this comes home to roost a little bit, is that, if you do have a digital item, you're essentially buying the right to that item to access it. And usually there are terms of service, well, pretty much always there are terms of service that limit your access to that information and don't really guarantee that you'll always have access to it. And that is part of the pitfall here. So, it's interesting. I've seen examples of people getting refunded. There's almost certainly some work being done behind the scenes by Amazon to fix the issue. One just assumes that. However, there's very little actual evidence that that's happening in any way, shape, or form. So don't take this as that. But I assume that they're probably going to want to fix some of these problems. We'll have to see if they operate in good faith. But such a large company with receiving so many complaints, if they don't fix these problems, it will be an absolute riot. All right, everybody, I'm super curious to see what your opinions are on this topic down below in the comments. Let me know what you think. I think this is a fascinating subject. Since you've made it to the end of the video, I do want to invite you to check out a couple offers I have in the description below. You can join Whatnot, which is a cool auction platform that I'm part of now as a seller, and you can actually get $10 off your first purchase following and signing up an account from the link that I have in the description below. On top of that, I have some other cool discounts you can take advantage of there. Gemini, if you want to pick up comic book supplies, I have a discount code and a referral link down below for that as well. Not to mention, if you want to get your comic books clean and pressed, you can get any comic book clean and pressed over at Turlock Comics, which you can find on Instagram. I also have a link in the description for that. You can get any comic book clean or pressed for $15, or if you send in 10 or more comic books, you can get it done for $12 each plus shipping. And that is a fantastic deal that I recommend taking advantage of. In fact, I actually have a video coming out later this week with some really cool results on a huge modern grail that you're absolutely going to enjoy seeing that video, I think. So definitely check that out. They did a great job cleaning and pressing that book. So I finally get to show off some results from their work. Until next time, I want to thank you for watching another one of my videos. And I want to remind you, as always, hey, 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 hey. Read comics every day.